Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When a person passes away leaving behind a lot of wealth, generally there are many problems that arise. In most homes where a lot of wealth is left, the heirs begin to fight and squabble.
So I recently found this series by Mufti Menk. It's called Dealing with Difficulty, which was the Ramadan series. And I came across it during Ramadan and I was like, this is brilliant. Because he's speaking about things that people go through on a day-to-day basis. And one of the most common misunderstandings by the people is that they don't realize that the laws come out of the Sharia, meaning out of the Quran, that there are specific verses in the Quran dealing with inheritance. And they don't know, they don't understand the wisdoms behind it, and they have this false understanding that they can choose how they want to draft their wills. Now, obviously, it's not this way according to Sharia. For anybody that is wanting to understand why it is that you have to do this, let's hear what Mufti Menk has to say on the matter.
If you take a look at the Quran, the only detailed explanation of an act of worship is that of distribution of the estate of the deceased or the laws of inheritance. That is the only thing that Allah mentions in detail to the fraction.
Now, just to pause here, did you hear what he just said? It is the only section where Allah has in detail described what it is that we have to follow in terms of inheritance, down to the fraction. Meaning there's no room for interpretation. So you can't come up, that also means that you can't come up with your own number. You have to follow what is in the Quran. So we move along.
Here's the reason. That wealth doesn't belong to you and doesn't belong to the deceased. It belongs to Allah. Allah gave it to the deceased prior to their death through whatever means He wished. Allah gave them through business deals, by giving them a brain, by putting them at the right place at the right time, by giving them something. They might have earned it from their parents or whoever else they may have inherited it from. Or maybe Allah Almighty might have just granted them some form of a blessing.
So what I'm hearing is that everything that I have in my life, that I've accumulated in my life, everything, that it's actually not of my own accord. Yes, I am making all the effort, I'm working, as you said, maybe you got it from a business deal that you've done. Meaning, so to me that signifies effort that I've made on my part as the worshipper of Allah. And Allah is the one who effects the result. But the result is what? The result is that I have worldly gain. So I make money from my business deal. I buy furniture, I buy clothing, I buy a car, I buy a house, etc. That is my worldly gain that I've gotten from making the effort towards making business. But essentially what Mufti Menk is saying here is that everything has been given to me by Allah. Even the fact that I'm able to make effort is from Allah. Like, how beautiful is that to think about? That everything down to my inner being, it is all by the will of Allah that I'm able to move, that I'm able to speak right now, that I'm able to blink my eyes, that I'm able to, that my heart has the ability and the capacity to pump the oxygen and the blood through my veins and from my lungs to automatically expand and contract so that I can breathe, etc. Everything has been gifted to me. And I'm saying this and I'm highlighting this because people have the false notion that everything that I've worked for, it's mine. And so how can I let that just go to a child that's on drugs? How can I just let it go to my brother? How can I let it go to my mother? They had nothing to do with anything that me and my wife is doing. We worked our whole entire lives for the things that we have. I can't just let it go to my parents. It's only fair that it goes to my spouse because she or he worked with me to accumulate this wealth. It just doesn't make sense. And so people end up doing a Western will, which is very dangerous. As you've heard, the laws are very specific.
They got it from Allah. Allah says, when I give you something, remember when you came onto this earth, you came with nothing. When you leave, you're going to leave with nothing besides your deeds. So whatever you've amassed, you're going to leave it behind anyway because you didn't come with it in the first place. It's mine. I will tell you what to do with it while you have it, and I will tell you what should happen with it after you've gone. That's Allah. That's Islam. if we acknowledge that Allah Almighty is the one who will decide how we will earn, how we will spend, and what will happen to our wealth the day we leave.
Did you hear that? That is Allah, that is Islam. Islam is submitting to His will. So if Allah gives us very specific laws in the Quran regarding inheritance, is it not for us if we call ourselves Muslims? Meaning, a person who submits, Muslim translates to the person who submits to the will of Allah. In context of the religion, the religious meaning, it is someone who submits to the will of Allah. Does that not mean that we have to submit to His words, because the only direct connection we have is with His words that the Prophet ﷺ delivered to us? So if you're a Muslim, it means you have to give up all worldly notions of, oh, I worked for this, so, and me and my wife, me and my husband worked for this, so it's only fair that it goes to my spouse after I die because we were equal partners in this. You are falsely thinking that because you worked that it's yours. If it was yours, then it should go with you in your grave. But the only thing you're taking with you to your grave is your deeds.
Then we're true Muslims. So let's look at this. You can only earn through certain means, and you're not allowed to earn through what is known as haram means. I'm not going to go into the detail of that today, but when we pass away, that wealth, Allah tells us, if you have the following categories of people, they will always inherit.
Always.
A spouse, parents, and children.
Exactly.
They will always inherit. And if you have a father,
listen to that,
from among your parents, like a father's alive, or you have a son
this is very
who
important.
is alive, then you don't go beyond these relatives. It doesn't go further. The minute there's a father or a son, then you only go to parents, spouse, and children. Nobody else. Subhanallah.
Very important.
They are the ones most deserving of your wealth. But I don't get along with my father.
Rewind that and listen to it again. That is very important to note. It doesn't go beyond them.
But my son is like this, but that these are difficulties. You know what? You're going to need to navigate through them. You have to adopt the law of Allah, even if that wealth is lost to a degree after your death. For as long as it went to the right hands, you have set yourself free. You might have
fear Allah and attain His pleasure. Fear His punishment and His disappointment. Fear His disappointment and make Him happy by following His law. That's basically what Mufti Menk is saying here. Subhanallah.
a few million, but I can't have it with this one and that one. Yes, if you have a child who is perhaps
let's just run that back quickly.
As long as it went to the right hands, you have set yourself free.
You hear that? Free.
You might have a few million, but I can't have it with this one and that one. Yes, if you have a child who is perhaps an addict of intoxicants or drugs, you might want to look into how you can help create a management of the money that will belong to him in the case of your death. Someone to manage it, to spend it on the right things, and to avoid it being spent on intoxicants and so on. So you might want to create some form of a protective system, and the wealth will go into that system in order to be spent on this particular person, but it still has to go to that person.
Exactly.
If in your lifetime you've given gifts to your children, that's theirs. But you cannot connect it with your death to say...
So point is, even if you... It's so strict, and this is the test for you and I, as the parents, if we have children that are like that are on drugs, and Allah protect our children from this evil in the world. Allah protect our children. Allah protect our children and us. I mean, if we have children that are like that are struggling with that, I'd rather say it like that, then you still cannot take away the inheritance. You still can't keep it away from them, but it can be managed for them. Look at that. That's the beauty of Islam. It is to manage it for them. You make a deal and say, listen, if you get clean, you go to the rehab, we will release some of this money to you. We'll manage it for you. You'll get it on a monthly basis, whatever the case may be, but you cannot take it away from the person. Why? Because it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gave it to them. And so you have to give it to them. As hard as it may be, remember at the end of the day, it is about you as the individual, you as the worship of Allah that has to submit. You have to be a Muslim even in that moment when you are drafting your will. Be a Muslim, submit to Allah's will, and be happy for the fact that Allah will be hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. He will be enough for you, and He is the disposer of all your affairs in this world. So have that tawakkul, have that trust that He will take care of your affairs after you pass away, and that He takes your child and gets them off the drugs. Because imagine, psychologically, your child is thinking, I'm going to get nothing from my parents after they die. And then still, they get something. How shocked would they be? You might just shock them into becoming a better person, and perhaps even the best Muslim. You never know. So, Allahu A'lam.
If I die, you take this and you do this, and I don't want to give this one and that one. These you have to give them. If you don't have a father and you don't have a son, then after your spouse gets whatever they get, your daughters will get the bulk of what you've left behind. Either half or 2/3 of what you've left behind goes to your daughters. Why? Because you don't have a son who's going to look after them, or you don't have a father who's going to take care of their grandchildren. In Islam, that's how it should be. If you're the closest male, you should be looking after the females who are the closest to you in relation financially. Did you know that? Subhanallah. Those are some amazing teachings that people have ignored in this world of materialism.
Allah protect
May
us.
Allah Almighty protect us.
Ameen, ameen.
So, when you have a person within your family who's passed away and you are one of the heirs, you will need to deal with it at your earliest convenience.
Your earliest. You heard how Mufti said that? Your earliest convenience. Why? I'm living in South Africa. When people deal with inheritance, I've dealt with cases where the children's parents' estates are still active, meaning it hasn't been closed off for the past 10 years, 13 years, 15 years, 3 years. You know, some of it is due to system-related issues, but a lot of it is on the part of the family, the person who is sort of the executor or executrix. They're not doing their part, and everything is on a standstill. But yeah, Mufti Menk says, at your earliest convenience.
So even if you're not going to break up the business, but you need to know who owns what share from very early on. The quicker the better, as they say.
Especially when it comes to this, the quicker the better. You know, and I say the quicker the better because the waswas of shaitan is dangerous, especially when it comes to this. His objective, one of his big objectives, is to break family ties, is to help people become comfortable with breaking family ties. And what an opportunity for him to come in during a time when people are sad, when people are some people are greedy and they're seeing, hey, I can get my hands on this. I'm next. I want my money. You know, and this is my concern for my people. Like, listen to what Mufti Menk is saying. What he's saying is 100% true. How do I know this? I've worked in the industry. Currently still working in the industry. And I try my utmost to speak to people from a point of keeping the family ties. That is the most important. The wealth that you're going to get is going to be secondary. Keep the family ties.
Sooner the better. When you delay, it becomes sticky and ugly. Allah Almighty mentions every fraction because He wants to test you. Do you acknowledge it's from Allah? And do you acknowledge that this has to be distributed?
Do you acknowledge that it's from Allah? I challenge anybody that's going through this. Through the inheritance process. And you wanting to draft the will according to what you want to put in there. Ask yourself, am I acknowledging that this law is from Allah? Because some people, Muslims, told me, no, it's outdated. You know, Islam, Sharia has this archaic view on how the laws must work. We're not living back in the day. Astaghfirullah. Allah forgive us for the things that we say, because the Sharia is for all times. It is Allah's laws. And you are speaking about your Rabb. You are speaking about the Almighty's words in that manner. You need to check yourself.
No matter how much we love wealth, it has to be done fairly as per the instruction of Allah Almighty. So sometimes you have people who are very religious, but in the laws of inheritance, they failed. They've gone against verses of the Quran. One wonders what their connection is with Islam after that. They may argue, but remember, to deny a portion of the Quran is extremely dangerous.
Let's run that back.
Extremely deny action is with Islam after that. They may argue, but remember, to deny a portion of the Quran is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous for a believer. So sometimes we fail in this. That's why we have this topic today, dealing with difficulty regarding inheritance and the sharing of the estate. Don't be an obstacle. Let it be shared in a fair manner. Do not deprive your sisters. Many people, the sisters or the daughters or the mother or the wife or wives, they deprive them because they say, these are women. You know what? What will they understand about the valuation of this place and so on? No. Allah is watching. Allah knows. Would you like blessings? Would you like a decent, good life filled with contentment? If that's the case, give them their due. Give it to them. Allah is watching. You came with nothing, you're going...
Allah is watching. You came with nothing, you will leave with nothing.
to go with nothing. So just give it to them. What is stopping you from giving it to them? And don't delay and don't cheat them. Because many people, unfortunately, shamelessly, don't mind to say, no, my dad gave you during his lifetime, so you don't have a share of what is remaining now that he's died.
That what he's describing now is what you will see in the world. It's called collation, the law of collatia. It's not allowed. It's collation. Think of the word when you collate a bunch of pages after you, like if you're printing and they say, should we collate? Meaning, should we take all the single pages, put it together, and then print it out as one document? So what that is referring to here is saying, all the things that I've given my child in my lifetime, now that I pass away, or after I pass away, everything I've given to him or her in my lifetime will be minused. It will be taken, it will be removed from the inheritance that they were supposed to get from me after I pass away. So if the child was supposed to get 100,000, but I gave the child 50,000 during my lifetime, I pass away, the child's supposed to get 100,000, but because I put in my will the law of collation, that it would apply, then the child will only get 50,000 instead of the full 100,000. That is not permissible in Islam. And you heard Mufti say it now as well. Some people feel comfortable doing that, but let's hear what he has to say.
That is against the Quran. Go and ask any scholar you want.
Did you hear?
If my father gave you during your lifetime, does that mean I no longer have a share if he dies and leaves behind something? The answer is you do have a share. If something is left behind and still belonged to your father when he died, then you need to know that you have a share in it because you are an heir. Share. So don't delay. My beloved brothers and sisters, from this beautiful episode, what we want to achieve is to understand the importance of the laws of inheritance, the readiness to fulfill them without question or doubt, without fear or favor, and to do so as soon as possible. Now, if there is a business that's running a multi-million-dollar business, what should I do? Because I don't have the money to actually pay the people out. In that case, you can build a company, or you can make the people proportionate shareholders of the company, and they will share the profit. They will share the profit for as long as it takes to sell their part of the business, and they may not want to sell it. So say, for example, we have 25%, 25%, and 50%. So there's a boy and two girls. What would happen is, if we needed to keep it that way, these girls will continue to get their portion of the business, or of the profit, even though they may not be directly involved in that business. but it belongs to them.
Now, that is actually, I like that concept. Why? Because then they're getting profits from the business, which means that they're getting a sort of a monthly, if you can work it out that way, then they can actually look after themselves, especially if they're not married, because the responsibility of taking care of the sisters is with the brother if their father is no longer alive. Then the brother has to now obviously use of the inheritance that he receives and use that to take care of his sisters. But in the case where there's a business, I mean, come on, they can then be earning from the business and they can become self-sufficient, and the brother still has that responsibility of making sure that they are taken care of until such time that they get married, and Allah knows best.
Bear this in mind, because some people delay and they take 5 years to resolve the matter, and in that 5 years someone gained. Who gained? Whoever gained, that gain was supposed to be distributed amongst the heirs. Be fair. Allah has taught us in Surah An-Nisa, the surah that speaks about women. Allah has taught us in that surah the importance of distributing the estate fairly, correctly, without delay, in a manner that is going to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
How interesting is that? That the laws of inheritance comes in the chapter of women.
You will earn your paradise when you let go. Let things happen the way Allah has ordained. Don't attach to what is not yours in the law of Allah, no matter what. Like I said earlier, you might have to lose something. For as long as you set yourself free, Alhamdulillah, it's okay if I lost.
Alhamdulillah.
Imagine if someone told you, if you lose this million, you earn Jannah. You might lose this money, but you'll earn paradise. I tell them, take the million, let's go to Jannah. Allahu Akbar. May Allah grant us all paradise. أقول قولي هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.
So we'll end it there for today, just like Mufti ended. And I hope that this episode gave you a bit of understanding in terms of what happens. And this is the first episode, more to come, inshallah. We'll be reacting on other videos as well that I find interesting to me and that I feel is going to be beneficial for anyone watching. And whatever good comes from this, please don't mistake me for being aggressive or anything. It's just a passion that comes out. I have a real concern for my people. I'm here in the Western Cape in South Africa, I have a real concern, and I wish the best for my people. And I feel like content like this, that people like Mufti Menk, Nu'man Ali Khan, Umar Sulaiman, and some of the other famous people on the platforms, that when they put out content like this, that it inspires me, and I hope that I can take this content and use it to inspire others as well. And this is my version of doing that, inshallah. So more to come. I hope to see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.